I want you to imagine something just for a second. You're walking down a typical city street, middle of summer, and it's loud.
Oh yeah, the worst kind of loud.
Right. The traffic is blaring, you've got the concrete radiating all that heat right through the soles of your shoes, and everything is just kind of gray and harsh.
Very sterile.
Exactly. But then you take a sharp turn down this narrow passageway between two apartment buildings, and instantly the roar of the traffic just drops away.
Like flipping a switch.
Yeah, exactly like that. Suddenly you're surrounded by like 10-foot-tall sunflowers. You can hear a neighborhood choir practicing somewhere down the lane. There's actual poetry painted on the brick walls, and the air smells like fresh earth and lilacs. It feels like you just stepped through a portal into this lush, blooming oasis.
I mean, it sounds like a movie set, right? Or maybe some kind of utopian sci-fi concept. But what we're actually talking about is a very real, everyday piece of urban infrastructure.
It's totally real. This oasis isn't a fantasy. It is happening right now in Montreal. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a movement that is completely redefining what a modern city can feel like.
We're pulling our insights from this fantastic source material, The Guide to Montreal's Flowery Alleys, which was published by wikiresidence.ca and infodrome.ca.
Yes. And our mission for this deep dive is to really figure out how citizens in Montreal are literally ripping up asphalt to reclaim public space, moving way beyond just a few basic green alleys to actually engineer these densely blooming, fully functional ecosystems. So, okay, let's unpack this, because the idea of taking standard grimy city pavement and just reverting it back into a thriving habitat is completely fascinating to me.
It really is a profound shift in how we approach urban design.
Yeah.
And to grasp the impact, you really have to look at the sheer scale of the phenomenon. We are not talking about, a handful of cute, isolated garden paths here.
Right. It's not just one neighborhood project.
Not at all. Montreal currently boasts more than 450 green and flowery alleys crisscrossing its boroughs. The guide actually refers to them as the true lungs of the metropolis.
Wow, the true lungs.
Yeah, because when you have hundreds of these microenvironments woven intricately through the urban grid, they stop being mere decorations.
Yeah.
Right? They begin to function as a massive, decentralized respiratory system for the entire city.
450 spaces. I mean, that is a staggering amount of land to convert. But before we get to the blooming flowers and the poetry and all the fun stuff, I really want to talk about the literal groundwork.
The dirt.
Yeah, the dirt. Because a standard city alleyway is usually just this solid, impermeable strip of asphalt, designed for garbage trucks and delivery vans. How does a neighborhood actually go from a concrete driveway to a biological paradise? I mean, it can't be as simple as just throwing some topsoil and seeds on the ground.
No, it requires some serious heavy lifting. And it relies on a very tightly coordinated financial and human partnership. So the boroughs and the local eco-neighborhood organizations, they allocate a specific budget for this, which typically ranges from about $15,000 to $25,000 per project.
See, I have to admit, I'm a bit confused by that number.
How so?
Well, $25,000 sounds like, on one hand, a lot of money for a garden, but on the other hand, it's a tiny amount of money for a municipal construction project.
Right. It's a drop in the bucket for a city budget.
Exactly. So where does that funding actually go?
The bulk of it goes toward the foundational mechanical transformation of the space. First, you've got the asphalt excavation.
Oh, wow. So they literally rip it up.
Yeah, you have to bring in machinery to tear up and remove a century-old impermeable layer of the city. And beneath that asphalt, the dirt is often, as hard as rock from decades of compression.
Right, because trucks have been driving on it for 100 years.
Exactly. So once you expose that earth, you run into the second and probably most critical phase, the installation of stormwater management systems.
Oh, wait, I can totally see how that becomes a problem. If you just rip up the asphalt between two rows of apartment buildings, doesn't all the rainwater just rush straight into everyone's basements?
That is the exact engineering challenge. When the alley is paved, the water rushes off the asphalt and into the city's usually overwhelmed sewer system. When you remove that pavement, you have to actively manage where the water goes.
So they have to build plumbing for it.
Pretty much. The budget pays for things like French drains, permeable sublayers, and bioswales. These safely direct the rainwater deep into the earth to feed the root systems, rather than flooding building foundations.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then, after that invisible plumbing is handled, the remainder of the budget covers the initial massive purchase of quality soil and the foundational flora.
Thinking about that targeted investment, that $15,000 or $25,000 makes me think of urban acupuncture.
Oh, urban acupuncture. Let's
Yeah.
explore that analogy. How does acupuncture map onto an alleyway?
Well, think about how acupuncture works in the human body, right? You have a system that is tense or blocked or experiencing a lot of pressure. The practitioner doesn't perform major surgery.
Right, they just use a needle.
Exactly. They insert a tiny, highly precise needle into a specific pressure point, and that localized insertion stimulates flow and relieves tension across the whole body. So, in a city, a $25,000 budget is basically a rounding error. It is a tiny financial needle.
That's a great way to put it.
But when you insert that piece of nature into a highly localized, neglected choke point, it relieves the pressure of the surrounding concrete, it redirects the energy, and actually stimulates a completely new flow of healthy pedestrian movement across the entire neighborhood block.
And what's fascinating here is how clearly the data illustrates that new flow. The guide estimates that Montreal's landscaped alleys record over 50,000 pedestrian and cyclist passages per week citywide.
50,000, that's incredible.
It is. These spaces have effectively become the preferred routes for active mobility. We're seeing a massive behavioral shift.
Because people actually want to walk there.
Exactly. If a citizen is walking to the grocery store or, cycling to work, they are actively choosing to bypass the main commercial arteries with all the exhaust fumes and noise. They opt instead for this peaceful, shaded, flower-lined alternative. It is fundamentally changing how humans navigate the physical geometry of the city.
So what does this all mean for the people living there? We know these spaces look beautiful and we know people are choosing to walk through them, but I want to push back and play devil's advocate for just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
Because whenever we talk about neighborhood beautification and stimulating flow, there's always that cynical voice in the room asking, is this just a clever real estate trick?
The gentrification question.
Yeah, exactly. Is the city ultimately just doing this to boost property values and quietly gentrify these working class neighborhoods?
It is a really crucial question to ask. And to be fair, the guide does not shy away from the economic realities at all. The data clearly shows that properties located directly adjacent to a well-maintained flowery alley see their market value increase by about 3 to 5%.
Okay, so there is a financial bump.
There is an undeniable real estate benefit to having a park essentially attached to your backyard. However, we really have to look at the mechanism driving that value increase because it goes far beyond simple curb appeal. Environmentally, these vegetative corridors act as highly effective bulwarks against urban heat islands.
Oh man, the heat island effect is becoming such a massive crisis for modern cities.
It really is.
And just for you listening, that happens because all the concrete, brick, and asphalt absorb the sun's radiation all day long, and then they act like a giant oven, basically baking the neighborhood all night long, preventing the city from ever actually cooling down.
Right. And an asphalt alley acts as the heating element right at the core of that block. But a flowery alley physically disrupts that thermal dynamic through a biological process called transpiration.
Transpiration, like plants sweating.
Essentially, yes. The exposed soil absorbs moisture, and the plants sweat. They release that moisture into the air. As that water evaporates, it draws ambient heat out of the environment, naturally refrigerating the surrounding air.
That is so cool, literally.
Literally. The guide explicitly notes that this vegetative cooling allows residents to significantly reduce their air conditioning usage during those really sweltering summer months. So the property value isn't just reflecting a pretty view, it is reflecting a measurably cooler, way more energy-efficient microclimate.
Okay, so you are lowering your energy bills while stepping out into a cooler yard. I get that. But the guide also details a completely different kind of value, something that is frankly, a lot harder to put on a real estate listing. It talks about repairing the social fabric.
Yes, the social aspect is huge.
Because we live in these incredibly dense cities, packed in with thousands of people, yet people have never felt more isolated.
And the sociological impact is arguably the most powerful mechanism at work here. These alleys are entirely managed by dedicated citizen committees.
Oh, the city doesn't maintain them.
No. The city provides the initial excavation, but the residents have to govern the space. This forces neighbors who might have lived side by side for a decade without speaking to actually sit down, negotiate a shared vision, and literally dig in the dirt together. It completely shatters the anonymity of urban living.
And the text gives these incredible, vivid examples of what happens when that anonymity breaks. I mean, they don't just plant some shrubs and go back inside their apartments. These alleys become vibrant communal living spaces.
What were some of your favorite examples?
Oh, the guide highlights neighbors hosting block-wide corn roasts, organizing storytelling walks for the kids, and my absolute favorite detail, alleyway choirs.
Alleyway choirs.
Right. Just imagine sitting on your fire escape on a Tuesday evening, and the acoustics of the Brett Alley are carrying the sound of a community choir rehearsing down this green corridor. It completely transforms a place you used to just hurry through with your head down into a safe, really joyful gathering space.
And that tightly woven social fabric directly triggers a drop in crime rates.
Oh, really? It affects crime.
Yes, the guide highlights this connection specifically. It relies on the well-documented sociological theory of natural neighborhood watch, or, having eyes on the street.
Right, because people are actually out there.
Exactly. When an alley is paved, neglected, and devoid of any legitimate foot traffic, it naturally invites illicit or antisocial behavior. It's empty. But when a space becomes a community's collective pride and joy, when children are playing there, seniors are walking through, neighbors are out watering plants, you establish continuous, organic surveillance.
It's self-policing.
Precisely. The space is visibly cared for, which psychologically deters vandalism, and the petty crime rates naturally plummet.
Man, here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the guide doesn't just hand us the theory and the budgets. It gives us a literal right map. It actually ranks the top 10 most important and unique flowery alleys across Montreal.
A top 10 list.
Yeah. And when you look at how these specific spaces are functioning, you realize we aren't just talking about one monolithic concept. Every single alley solves a different urban problem. So let's take you, the listener, on a bit of an immersive tour, starting with the spaces that tackle urban sterility through, like, pioneering agriculture and art.
Sounds great. The guide places Epicurus Alley right at the top of its exclusive ranking. It is located in the Verdun borough.
And Verdun's doing some amazing stuff right now.
Incredible work in this space. They boast 18 distinct green alleys and thousands of newly planted flora. But Epicurus is the pioneer. Its central focus is on dense blooming and urban agriculture.
So they're actually growing food.
Yes, the residents here have moved way past ornamental beauty and created a highly productive, layered agricultural model. They are addressing food security and soil regeneration right in the middle of a dense residential block.
That is amazing. And then you transition from agriculture to pure artistic expression with Modigliani Alley over in Le Plateau, Montreal.
Ah, the plateau.
Right. The Plateau has always been famous for its distinct bohemian vibe, and the residents have really poured that identity into their alleyway.
The guides specifically point out that Modigliani is maintained with the meticulous precision of an artist. I mean, it features expansive vine arches, incredibly vibrant commissioned murals painted across the brick facades, and flower boxes that are just overflowing.
And the art actually serves a dual purpose, right?
It does. It creates a highly curated aesthetic experience, sure, but the murals also act as a known deterrent against random, destructive tagging.
That makes a lot of sense. People respect the art. And speaking of using art to solve an urban problem, La Poésie Green Alley in Ville-Marie completely blew my mind.
Ville-Marie is right in the thick of it.
It is the downtown core. Usually, a downtown alley is the grittiest, most chaotic commercial space imaginable. But the residents here tackled that chaos by combining wild native flora with literal excerpts of poetry painted beautifully onto the brick walls and the wooden palisades.
Hence the name, La Poésie.
Right. It creates this profound psychological contrast. You have the noisy, overwhelming metropolis just a few feet away, but you step into this corridor and it forces you to slow down, read a stanza of poetry, and just catch your breath.
It acts as an acoustic and mental buffer zone. Now, if we look at a different urban crisis, the collapse of local wildlife habitats, the guide highlights a second group of alleys that function as complex micro-ecosystems.
Oh, this part was fascinating.
A prime example is La Chapelle in the Rosemont-La Petite Patrie borough. This passageway is famous for its insect hotels.
I am so glad they highlighted this, because for anyone listening who hasn't encountered an insect hotel, they are really cool. These are specialized structures built out of natural materials, drilled logs, hollow bamboo reeds, layered pine cones.
They look a bit like little birdhouses filled with twigs.
Exactly. And they aren't for honeybees. They are designed specifically to give solitary bees, ladybugs, and other vital pollinators a safe place to nest and lay their eggs in an environment that usually offers them nothing but concrete.
And the biological engineering in Les Chapelles goes a step further. They don't just provide housing, They ensure a continuous food supply.
Oh, with the staggered blooming.
Exactly. The Citizen Committee specifically selects and layers colorful perennials so that something is always in bloom, continuously from the first thaw of spring all the way to late autumn. If an alley only features spring blooming flowers, those pollinators will basically starve by August. The staggered bloom cycle creates a highly resilient, life-sustaining habitat.
You see a similarly brilliant layered habitat down in Le Sud-Ouest borough, just steps from the industrial history of the Lachine Canal at Des Moineaux Alley.
They want to know the sparrows.
Yes. This space is a masterclass in blending human utility with wildlife support. They built this incredible urban furniture out of recycled wood for the neighbors to sit and socialize on. But the flower beds surrounding those benches are explicitly designed with flora that yields the specific seeds and berries required to attract local bird life. You are literally sitting inside a functioning aviary.
It's brilliant design. And perhaps the most immersive example of habitat creation on the list is Petit Bois Alley in the Ahuntsic-Cartierville borough.
Oh, the little forest.
Right, is known as the jewel of the city's north end. What the residents have achieved here is remarkable. They have cultivated a dense understory of flora beneath a mature tree canopy.
The guide describes the experience of walking into Petit Bois as almost magical. It says it makes you feel as though you have completely left the metropolis behind after taking just a few steps. That is the power of a mature canopy, you know. The dense leaves completely change the way light filters down to the ground, and the biomass acts as this heavy acoustic dampener, physically blocking out the high-frequency screech of traffic and sirens.
The physical environment completely alters the psychological state of the pedestrian.
Definitely.
Finally, the guide tours a third category of spaces, which we could call the community playgrounds. These are alleys where the primary problem being solved is human isolation.
Right, the social spaces.
Take the Pie et Jeanne d'Arc Alley in the Mercier-Hochelaga-Maisonneuve borough, often abbreviated to MHM, a district with incredible greening momentum right now. This flagship project is renowned for two things: pollinator-friendly arrangements and hosting spontaneous cultural events.
So it's very active.
Yes, the space is physically designed to be flexible, allowing neighbors to just gather organically.
And then there is La Traversée Alley in Villeray-Saint-Michel Park Extension. The visual the guide paints here is just stunning. They have used dense climbing plants to completely blanket the harsh chain link and metal fencing that usually divides properties, basically softening all the aggressive edges of the block.
And they're famous for their massive sunflower planter boxes.
Yes. I try to picture the psychology of that. When you plant a sunflower in a narrow gray corridor, it reaches 10 feet high. It completely dwarfs you. It is such a towering, joyful statement of life in a place that is usually pretty dead.
It acts as a deliberate visual cue. It signals to everyone walking through, nature, not traffic, dictates the rules of this space.
I love that.
And we see a similar focus on joy in Des Merveilles Alley, also in the MHM borough.
Which translates to the Alley of Wonders.
It is an incredibly apt name. The guide highlights it as an absolute paradise for local children. The community here has seamlessly integrated education with nature by installing small wooden book-sharing boxes nestled directly among the blooming lilacs and hardy roses.
I really want to emphasize what a massive behavioral shift that represents. I mean, if you are a child growing up in a dense, heavily trafficked urban grid, your outdoor play is usually tightly restricted because of the cars.
Right, don't go in the street.
Exactly. But here, you have a safe, shaded lane that smells like lilacs right behind your house, where you can run freely, reach into a wooden box, and grab a book to read under a rose bush. That fundamentally changes a child's entire relationship with their city.
It proves that the built environment doesn't have to be hostile to development. And rounding out the top 10, we have La Promenade Alley, again the MHM borough. This space is structured as a dedicated walking path.
Right. It's very intentional.
Very. The borders aren't just wild growth. They are described as meticulous, miniature botanical gardens. It demands that the pedestrians slow their pace, observe the details, and treat the alley with the respect of a civic museum.
You know, listen to the mechanics of these 10 alleys. I'm officially adding all of them to my travel bucket list. It is just incredible to see how much variety can exist within a single city's initiative.
Well, what's fascinating here is, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the guide perfectly synthesizes the ultimate achievement of this movement. These alleys have evolved far beyond mere utilitarian passageways.
Yeah.
They've become Montreal's new outdoor living rooms. They blur that rigid boundary that usually separates private domestic life from public civic responsibility. The residents have literally taken ownership of the space between their homes.
Which brings us directly to you, the listener. Because understanding the biology and the sociology of these alleys is fascinating, but experiencing them, or, better yet, creating them, is the ultimate goal. The
Absolutely.
guide actively invites you to participate. Whether you live in Montreal, or you're planning a visit, or you're just wondering how to spark a similar revolution in your own city, you have the blueprints. The guide points to interactive digital maps like the ones hosted at revitalized.ca, as well as the Ville de Montreal's official platforms, which track all these greening and traffic calming initiatives.
All mapped out.
Yeah, pull them up. Go find these hidden gems. Just remember to respect the tranquility of the residents who pour their sweat into cultivating them. Take these ideas back to your own neighborhood committee. You could be the catalyst that turns a garbage route into the next alley of wonders.
It all begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. We have just explored how a dedicated group of neighbors, armed with a surprisingly small municipal budget and a clear vision, can rip up an impermeable strip of neglected asphalt and engineer a thriving ecosystem. An ecosystem that measurably cools the air, brings back local pollinators, and organically lowers crime rates. It leaves you wondering, what other mundane, overlooked pieces of our urban infrastructure are sitting right outside our windows, just waiting for a neighborhood to come together and completely reinvent them?
When you step out onto your street today, look past the concrete, look for the spaces where the light gets in, and ask yourself what could grow there. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we will see you next time.